All right, this is called for the regular meeting of February the 1st, 2023 to order. I'd like to request that all commissioners and staff participants keep microphones muted unless they are speaking. And due to using Zoom for meetings, I'll ask for comments from each members on each item or groups of items after the staff presentation. Commissioners or staff should use the raise hand feature to ask for recognition at other times. And at this moment, I'd like to ask the clerk to please read the roll call.
All right, Chair Amanfor.
Here.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Griffin is absent. Commissioner Nunley.
Sorry. Here.
Commissioner Osmani. Let's see her. Commissioner Ramos.
Here.
Commissioner Ross.
Here.
Commissioner Stajabu.
Here.
Commissioner Starks.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wu.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. I would also like the clerk to read the public comments expectations as listed on the agenda.
All right, persons wishing to address the commission on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. The commission cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting. Members of the public with questions are encouraged to contact staff before or after the meeting. To speak on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes per item.
All right,
And I am
great.
showing no public speakers.
Perfect, thank you. I also like to ask the clerk to please read the consent item wording.
All right, all matters listed on consent are to be approved by one motion unless a commissioner or member of the public requests that separate action is taken on a specific item.
Okay, and I'd like to ask the commissioners for a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
Move. I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Perfect.
I'm sorry, who did the move? Oh, Wu, okay.
Moved by Darrell.
All right, thank you. And I'll do the roll. Chair Manfor.
Aye.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye.
Commissioner Nunley.
Aye.
Commissioner Osmani is still not here. Commissioner Ramos.
Aye.
Commissioner Ross.
Aye.
Commissioner Sajabu.
Aye.
Commissioner Starks.
Aye.
And Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Thank you.
Right. I think the first agenda item on the list is approval of commission minutes for January 18th, 2023. Recommendations to approve the minutes by the minute action.
I think that was just.
That's what we just did, right? Yeah.
Yep, I was on consent.
All right. Okay, so I guess we can move on to agenda item number 2, which is the 1-year action plan for federal programs allocation process workshop. I'd like to ask the clerk to read the title.
1-year action plan federal programs allocation process workshop number 1, and it will be presented by Stephanie Green.
Yes, we have
Okay.
Stephanie Green, who's our program manager over federal programs, is going to do the presentation and kick it off. Stephanie.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to start my presentation. Like Michelle said, my name is Stephanie Green, and I'm the Federal Programs Manager at SHRA. And tonight's presentation will be the first workshop on the allocation process for the 2024 annual action plan for both the city and the county of Sacramento for their federal entitlement grant programs. The purpose of tonight's workshop will be to provide information on the annual federal allocation process and funding requirements, as well as to solicit project ideas from both the public and elected officials. So this workshop will be the first of several opportunities over the next few months for you to provide project ideas and feedback for this action plan year. So we welcome any ideas that you have. I'll start with providing a brief overview on the requirements for the California Development Block Grant or CDBG program. Then I'll share with you the estimated 2024 city and county entitlements, as well as the funding allocations and projects that were approved in the previous year. And lastly, I'll discuss the process and schedule moving forward. So to start, I'll go over some of our CDBG objectives. The objectives for CDBG funding are developed through our analysis of impediments to fair housing, or AI, and consolidated planning processes. The AI helps us to identify the barriers to fair housing, and we also identify goals and objectives to overcome those barriers, which are then incorporated into the consolidated plan. The consolidated plan covers a 5-year period, and the current consolidated plan period is 2020 to 2024. Overall, our objectives are to help create ladders of opportunity for our low and moderate income residents throughout the city and the county through 3 different avenues: affordable housing, public facilities and infrastructure, as well as public services. You'll see that these 3 different categories are reflected in how CDBG funds are distributed in our action plan. When deciding on how to spend CDBG funds, we must ensure that they're spent on projects that meet one of 3 national objectives. The first is that it must benefit an area of low or moderate income, which means that it needs to be primarily residential, and at least 51% of those residents need to be at low or moderate income. Secondly, we can also provide funding directly to low and moderate income clientele, which is individuals or households at or below 80% of the area median income. And traditionally, we fund homeless shelters and Meals on Wheels as 2 client-based programs. We can also fund low and moderate income housing, which helps provide housing to individuals and households below 80% of area median. In addition to meeting a national objective, it must also be an eligible activity. The broad categories of major eligible activities include public facilities and infrastructure, and this could be community centers, playgrounds, streetscapes, streetlights. Public services, so this is Meals on Wheels, homeless shelters operations. Acquisition, for example, this could be acquisition of a property for a public facility or housing. It could be for clearance and remediation activities. So this could be cleaning up a toxic site that could eventually be used for affordable housing or a facility. It could also be used for homeowners assistance, planning and admin. So this is staff costs and environmental studies. I also wanted to highlight some of the major ineligible activities, and this list is not all inclusive, just a highlight. So one would be general government buildings and expenses. For example, you can't pay to renovate City Hall. Operating and maintenance expenses, so this would be custodial staff, cleaning, etc. Purchasing of construction equipment and furnishings, new housing construction, political and religious activities, and regional parks and facilities. The key word here being regional. Any parks or facilities supported with CDBG should have a community or a neighborhood benefit. Next, I'll highlight the 2024 estimated funding entitlements for the city and how that entitlement was allocated in the previous year. And after that, I'll do the same for the county. All of the federal programs listed here are entitlement programs, meaning that HUD uses a formula for which they derive those figures. And then each year they tell us how much we will get, and how much we will get in both the city and the county. It's then up to us to distribute those funds among those programs and activities in the action plan. We typically receive the final approved amount from HUD in April of each year. So for planning purposes, we base this year's estimated entitlement on what was approved in the previous year, anticipating no change in entitlement. For 2024 in the city, we're estimating that we'll get about $4.5 million for CDBG. For the Home Investment Partnerships Program, or HOME, we're estimating about $2.8 million. And home funds usually go to acquisition or construction of multifamily affordable housing projects. For the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, or ESG, we're estimating about $400,000, and this goes to help people who are homeless, for example, through rental assistance, as well as operations for emergency shelters. HOPWA is the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS program. And for this, we're expecting about $1.7 million. The bulk of this goes to operating programs through various counties. We receive it for Sacramento, El Dorado, Placer, and Yolo to be spent on programs and for physical permanent units as part of a multifamily project. Overall, we estimate we'll get about $9.4 million total for these federal programs in the city. As an example of how these CDBG funds are typically divided among programs, this table shows how it was divided up in last year's city action plan. About $1.1 million went to infrastructure and public facility improvements, about $1.2 million to affordable housing, and these funds are traditionally allocated to multifamily rehab and home repair programs for low and moderate income homeowners. About $600,000 went to public services, Public services can be a maximum of 15% of the entitlement, and traditionally we allocate these funds to both homeless activities and Meals on Wheels. About 740,000 went to grant administration. This can be a maximum of about 20% of entitlement and is used to pay for staffing and admin fees. About 722,000 went to a HUD loan repayment, and this is for repaying a Section 108 loan for infrastructure at our Marisol Village project. And this loan is a 20-year loan for about 16.4 million. The last category is capital reserve, which is a contingency bucket. And for this, we reserved about 117,000. These are the infrastructure projects funded in 2023 in the city. The first is the Northwood School Access Improvements Project, which is a street, sidewalk, and lighting improvement project for access to the Northwood School. The Broadway Complete Streets project is for construction of traffic calming, safety, and pedestrian and bike improvements along Broadway. The Babcock School Master Plan project is for development of a master plan for school playfields. So just like for the city, this table shows what the estimated 2024 county entitlements are for each program in the county for CDBG, home, and ESG. And just so you're aware, the HOPWA allocation that you saw on the city slide does not appear here because that allocation comes through the city and is distributed to the various counties, including Sacramento County, but the jurisdiction that receives it is the city. These are the 2023 county allocations, so from last year, and it shows how the allocations were divided up among the program categories for the county. You may notice that the total is a bit more than the estimated entitlement, and that is because if a project is completed and has leftover funds, we can reprogram those funds to a new project. So this table shows both the entitlement plus the reprogrammed funds. These are the county projects that were approved in the 2023 action plan. These are the Rosemont Streetlights Phase 3 project, which was for design and construction of new streetlights. The South Sacramento Affordable Housing Pedestrian Improvements Project, which is an ADA and pedestrian improvement project to an affordable housing development. The William B. Pond ADA Fishing Pier Improvements, which is replacement of an ADA fishing pier. Rio Linda Streetlights for new streetlights construction. And the South Oak Park Fruit Ridge Pocket ADA improvements, which includes installation of curb ramps and other ADA improvements. The next few slides, I'll outline the process moving forward to identify projects for the annual action plan. This process aligns the allocation process with the city and the county's capital improvement programs, which are on a fiscal year as opposed to our calendar year. And this alignment allows us to work together at the same time that they are preparing their capital improvement projects. And I will just give you the highlights. So in December, SHRA staff initiate the process with the city and the county to start thinking about the next year. In January or February, we meet internally with the city and county staff to identify projects and confirm if they're eligible. And at these meetings, when we're working with the city and the county, we try to think in a long term over a 2 to 3 year funding period. For example, if we're funding design of a park improvement project or a public works project, and we know in a few years out, we might want to fund construction, we'll keep that in mind. So we're always working and very contemplative to work with the city and the city and the county partners based on their CIP projects. In January or February, we hold our first public action plan workshops for both the city and the county. And this workshop is the first step in that public meeting process. This year, we'll be presenting to City Council on February 21st and Board of Supervisors on February 28th for our first action plan meetings there. In February and March, we continue to have internal city and county meetings to narrow down the projects. And then once we have an idea of what those projects are, we will circle back with the community with a draft list of projects. In April and May, we head back to City Council and the Board of Supervisors with that draft list. And this coincides with the timing of the city and the county CIP project approval, as well as their annual budgets. We then hold additional meetings in May and June to fine tune those projects. And then everything wraps up around August. And it takes us about 3 months to get through the whole public review process required by HUD, as well as the staff report process for the final action plan. Then we finally come back to the commission in September or October before it goes to the Board of Supervisors and City Council for approval in November. And then we submit the final action plan to HUD by November 15th. Once again, we welcome any ideas for input for projects from you either now, or you can reach out to us at any time in the coming months or at the next workshop that's currently planned for April 19th. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to any questions or comments.
Do we have our chair with us still?
Looks like he's missing.
Oh, Stephanie, you're already
Yeah.
up.
All right. I see 3 people with their hands up. So let's start with Commissioner Nunley.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation. It was very well done. The one thing that I did have a question on, I know in the past, I believe what may have been given to us was pretty detailed and involved, but it also went into the analysis of impediments, if I'm not mistaken. Or it gave some highlights of it at the very least. And I was wondering, that still will be included in the plan when it's fully submitted to who was it submitted to? CDBG, I assume?
So the analysis of impediments to fair housing is its own planning process that coincides with both our consolidated planning, and the action plan is something we do annually that tiers from that analysis of impediments to fair housing. So they're all tied together, but they are their own separate plans. But we can certainly provide you with more information on the AI if you would like.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to wonder about, if it's its own plan, because I do remember seeing it in years past. It was very informative, and I think it was very helpful. So I wasn't sure, and I understand what you're saying. It's its own plan and it's presented separately. So we will see that a little later in the year or something like that.
Yeah, so the analysis of impediments to fair housing is every 5 years. And so you will see that on a 5-year basis when we bring that forward. And I believe the next one is coming up next year.
Next year, okay. So then the only other thing, is it possible to maybe give a summary of that? And I hate to do that because I know you've already done the presentation and everything else. Is it possible to get maybe a quick highlight or summary of that, of some of those things? Because I think those are very, very important as to why some of the programs are here. And Lachelle, you can say, no, we're not doing that or whatever.
Yeah, we can provide that information to the commissioners and forward it to you. I mean, we don't have it off the top of our head, but yes, we can forward that information too.
Or thank you. That was my only question and concern, because it's very helpful to constantly have that information in front of us. Thank you very much. I appreciated your presentation.
Good question.
All right. Thank you. Apologies. I was having some technical difficulties. I appreciate you guys continue going on. I believe I see 2 other hands raised. Martin, please feel free to provide your comments.
Sure. Thank you. 1 second. Okay. I think Andres was before me.
Apologies.
Do you want to
It's
hit
up
him?
to you.
Yeah, let's let him go first because he.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Andre.
Thank you. And actually, first following up on what Cecile had just asked about, I definitely look forward to seeing some info on the analysis of impediments. Would definitely like to get more info on that. I know the Biden administration is rolling out a new affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, which I believe is going to replace the analysis of impediments. And so it sounds like coming into the next 5-year cycle, we're going to be under that new rule. So would definitely love to get any information as you all sort of digest the new rules as they come down. I would love to get any sort of summary or anything on that as that info comes down over the next months or year or whatever it may be. But definitely would love to see whatever the latest report on that analysis was. But I just had another question related to the process, and I really appreciate the overview of the process. Super helpful to know. I'm curious, where does the public participate in terms of submitting any potential requests or ideas around how some of these resources can be used? From looking at the slides, it looks like there's staff from city, county, SHRA who are coming together at certain points throughout the year. But is there a certain timeline or period when it's like, hey, community members submit proposed requests for how these funds can be used, and then do you all take that back, or like how does it originate, and is there a way for the public to submit requests or ideas for that?
So these workshops at SHRC and at the city and the county are public workshops, and we certainly invite public input at this point at any of these workshops on the action plan. There is, at the end of the action plan, there is a public review, public comment period. So they can certainly provide comment then, but we would invite any initial feedback on projects or programs during these public comment, these public presentations.
In addition to that, a lot of the elected officials for both the city and the county, through their communication and working through community meetings and talking to their constituents, that's really how some of those very, very important projects end up getting on the list. For instance, if there is a lot of concern about, a traffic signal or lack thereof, and it has become a hazard, and that's a part of the discussion that's going on with that particular council member or board member, then that's also an opportunity for them to, put that onto the list for consideration. And that's why we'll be going forward to the city and the county. So they're kind of hearing from their constituents through their meetings, and then there's obviously all these meetings are open for public comment.
And then just generally, is there a sort of cutoff date, like if folks in the community, if they wanted to submit a letter or reach out to their council member or supervisor to lift up an idea, is there a certain time by which they would need to get that in order to be sort of considered in this process?
I would recommend that they do it sooner than later in the process, because we number one have to do some work around any type of proposal. So they submit that to their represented elected official sooner in this process, as Stephanie outlined, then that gives then staff an opportunity to see, number one, is it in an eligible area? Does it meet the criteria? And then also the cost. I mean, as you saw on the list, it's not it's not a lot of money. Let's just put it that way in terms of the context of some of the projects, because what we're doing is leveraging other dollars. So for instance, when we're looking at like that traffic signal type of situation, there could be CIP money and capital improvement program money from the city or the county where they're putting in, but they just don't have enough. And so then the CDBG comes in and that could make the project go. So that's why sooner than later. So all those types of things can be evaluated is important.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Now, Martin? You're on mute.
You're still on mute.
I think with Executive Director Dozier's answers, I think most of my questions got answered, because those are the ones that I was thinking. I said, boy, you can't get any projects done with that. Where else are they getting their money? How does that work? And then the other presenter answered the questions that were regarding community feedback. And one of the things I do know, because I used to sit on the COC, there are a bunch of nonprofits, various organizations that, put in information in particular regarding homeless situations and how those situations are addressed. And so I think they capture quite a bit of the advocacy in there. there's a board with people with lived experience and those kinds of things. So as I was contemplating, you know, issues regarding homeless sheltering and so forth, I heard, of course, that it's supplemental funding because we'll be getting other funding. And I know there's a bunch of other advocates helping those situations. So I'm satisfied with that. And it was a good presentation. So thank you. My one question has to do with capital reserve. So what happens with that? And why is it reserved and not spent? Reserved for whom and for what purposes?
So generally, capital reserve is reserved for project overages. Sometimes, you know, if the project goes over budget or if environmental costs related to environmental review go over budget. So it's reserved for things like that. And generally it does get spent.
Okay.
Contingency.
I'm sorry, someone else was saying something?
So it's like a contingency.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I said that was my assumption, but I wanted to make sure that that was the case. So that's good, yeah, because there always are contingencies. Okay, that concludes my questions. Thank you.
And then just to also highlight the public services, there is a cap in terms of how much CDBG can be spent on public services, which is only 15%. So for like homeless services, those types of things, you can't exceed that cap. And in our plan, we use it for homeless services and Meals on Wheels.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great. Any additional questions or comments from commissioners? All right. Clerk, are there any public comments?
Seeing none.
Okay, and with that, I think we can transition on to the next agenda item, which is the next agenda item. So clerk, can you please read the titles for, I believe, agenda item 3 and 4 will be presented together?
Yes, we have San Juan Apartments by Mutual Housing Project County of Sacramento report and San Juan Apartments by Mutual Housing Project City of Sacramento report and resolution SHRC 2023-05. And one moment, they're loading that up. There we go.
We have Christine Weichert is going to do the presentation for both of the items together for the city and the county.
Good afternoon. If I could pull up my PowerPoint. I don't usually use PowerPoint, so this is interesting for me. So this afternoon, we're asking for approval to issue tax-exempt mortgage revenue bonds, execute disposition and development agreements, and seller carryback loans for the sale of SHRA-owned property, allocation of $1 million for the environmental cleanup, and a commitment of $20 million in city funds and $20 million in county funds and $2 million in city funds, all for the acquisition, construction, and permanent financing of the San Juan Apartments by Mutual Housing. So as background, between 2008 and 2010, SHRA purchased 8 parcels located on Stockton Boulevard and Young Street, totaling 5.5 acres. The site includes 3 large parcels in the unincorporated county and 5 smaller parcels located in the city. The parcels were purchased with former redevelopment and neighborhood stabilization funds. In November 2016, SHRA received approval for a vacant lot disposition strategy, which included the San Juan site, and a request for proposals was issued to solicit affordable housing developers. A selection committee awarded the project to Mutual Housing California, and their proposal was for family, workforce, and permanent supportive housing on the site. Giving funding limitations, the project has since been phased. The first phase and the subject of this report includes 7 parcels, 5 of which are in the city and 2 which are located in the county. The phase 1 site is 4.2 acres, and SHRA will be providing cleanup of contaminated soil on one of the county parcels prior to us selling the property. The project is 113 units comprised of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Incomes will range from 30 to 60% of area median income, And the development includes 12 buildings, a community room, playground, and a swimming pool. And the total project cost is $75 million. In addition to the $22 million in SHRA funding, financing for the project includes low-income housing tax credits, SMUD rebates, and a conventional loan. The project was also awarded Green Means Go funding in the amount of $2 million from the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. The funding will pay for a portion of the offsite improvements, including the extension of water, sewer, and stormwater services, as well as undergrounding of power lines. The developer is Mutual Housing, and they'll also serve as the property manager and resident service provider. The second phase of development includes the remaining county parcel located at 5716 Stockton Boulevard and expected to include approximately 70 units of permanent supportive housing, and staff anticipates returning for approval for the second phase of the project later in 2023. This slide helps to illustrate the city's parcels, which are in yellow, and the counties, which are in blue. In addition, you can see phase one of the project, which is being funded with the actions in this staff report. And again, we hope to return for approvals with the phase two of the project in the coming months. So in conclusion, staff's requesting approval of the funding and land disposition for the San Juan Apartments by Mutual, and we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners? Okay.
Right there.
There you go, Cecilia.
It took me a while to raise my hand. I couldn't find the button for a second. So just looking at this, I understand during your presentation, you talked about some utility improvements to the property, if I'm not mistaken, like the sewer and all of the infrastructure type things. Looking at this, is some of that already there for the city portion, and it's just the county portion that still needs to have those infrastructure brought in, or is it?
There's more city land, so I would, I think there's more county land, so there's probably more improvements to the county site, but the entire site needs improvement. In fact, this application, this Green Means Go application, was a joint application between the city and the county for the funding, and they, presented as one project, even though it's in both jurisdictions. So the entire site will need some improvements, yes.
Okay, and it's vacant right now, is that correct?
It is completely vacant right now.
Okay, so this will help that whole area with a lot more development, and it's bringing in that infrastructure, which makes it more attractive for other developers or anyone else, correct?
Right, and I hope you received the letter from the Stockton Boulevard Business Association. I think that might have been passed on to you, but I hope it was. But they're in total support of this development. They're really excited about it coming to fruition after all these years.
Yeah, it sounds good, and thank you so much for the presentation. Good PowerPoint, by the way. So
thank you. Am I not really in this? There we go.
All right, Commissioner Duncan, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I was looking at the last slide, I think, of your PowerPoint with the map. Can you bring that back up? Okay, so when I'm looking at Young Street and the 5 parcels in yellow that are within the red outline, are those, do those currently have, like, I know in that area they have like a car dealership and an apartment building. Are those 5 parcels in yellow have anything built on them currently?
They do not. They once, many years ago, had single family homes on them, but they have been vacant for quite a long period of time. Okay. But you're right. As you go down Young Street and you go into the unincorporated county, there's some, actually several apartment complexes along Nina Way there. There's quite a few, but there's nothing on the site that we're talking about today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
I'm looking to see if there are any other hands up. I don't see any additional hands up. And with that, Clerk, are there any public comments?
have no public comments.
All right, great. So the next part is, do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
I move staff recommendation.
We have a hand up. Apologies.
Second.
Apologies. We have someone's hand up. I believe Keith.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm not sure when the appropriate time was to speak, but this is Keith Bloom. I'm the Director of Acquisitions at Mutual Housing. And I just wanted to, first of all, thank Lachelle and Christine and their staff for working with us over the last, it's been a couple of years on this San Juan Motel project, a very challenging project and a very important one for Mutual Housing and the city and the county. And also want to thank the commission for considering our funding request. So with that, I'll let you go on to hopefully your vote. And if you have any questions of me, feel free to ask.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, great. Apologies if this probably threw everyone off. Hopefully we're still following the process in regards to voting in. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. All right. So now we will take a roll call for a vote.
Okay, Chair Manfor,
Aye.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Nunley,
Aye.
Commissioner Osmany,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Ross,
Aye.
Commissioner Sajabu,
Aye.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wu.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, great. And just to clarify, who who had the motion to approve it and who
I
seconded?
did.
Okay,
I have Morgan and Wu.
and then, well, all right. Just want to make sure that we captured that.
Thank you.
All right, and then the next step would be the executive director report.
So I'm not sure if everyone can see me. It looks pretty fuzzy.
Yeah,
Am
it's
I
all
fuzzy?
blurry.
It's
Yeah.
blurry.
I don't know what's happening with that. Okay, so while the IT, I know, I feel like if I sit at the right.
You were fine earlier, but now.
I think you have to be really, really close.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter, IT person. Okay, so just a couple of items. So our next meeting, February 15th is canceled. So the meeting that we will be at will be March 1st. So make sure that's on your calendars, March 1st. And this meeting will be in person because the executive order, emergency order allowing teleconferencing meetings is being lifted by the governor on February 28th. And so we've had an opportunity to review the requirements between the Brown Act, which is what we operated under prior to the pandemic, and now also AB 2449, and Amber gave an overview of that previously. And we really look at, if you look at the requirements and improvements regarding live streaming and YouTube, we've been able to do that, which has really allowed a much more public participation on the Zoom platform, and it's really making it much easier for public comments. And our participation has really increased since we've had an opportunity to live stream and also put those up on YouTube. And we're seeing more traffic as a result of our meeting and the dates and the times. So the Brown Act, though, as we evaluated that in the context of 2449, does give us more flexibility in terms of the public and having, you know, an opportunity for a maximum participation by the commissioners. And so that is, you know, what we feel is the best course of option to move forward with in March. So we'll have more conversation though, because we did hear, and we'll put that on the agenda for discussion about the meeting time. So we will have that agendized and we can discuss at our March 1st meeting. And were there any other questions or anything about that before I move on?
Yes, we have hands up from Commissioner Ramos.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify. So does that mean that the March 1st meeting will still start at 4 p.m., but we'll discuss at that meeting whether to adjust it going forward?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you please remind of the location for the meeting, just to make sure? I'm going to put it in my calendar right now. So
801 12th Street. And Amber will get information out to you about parking and any directions or assistance that you'll need. But yeah, I guess, yeah, there's quite a few of you have not actually been to our commission room. So we look forward to hosting you.
Is that going to cause a problem? We used to be able to park in the garage, but it was.
We'll have parking available for you within the garage.
Oh.
All right, we have a hand up from Commissioner Ross.
Oh, I think the two questions that I wanted to ask or answer: parking and location, and yeah, and then Commissioner Ramos, he asked about the meeting times, and that would be discussed. I guess my last one: will there be any snacks? Just a joke. We don't need that. Hopefully water. I don't need any snacks. I'm trying to keep trying to lose a few pounds. We'll see.
Oh, you've already opened the door now. So, people are like, oh, I'm glad he asked, not me.
Commissioner Morgan used to get us snacks to try and bribe people to show up because we had trouble getting a quorum. So I think snacks are good.
I saw all of Executive Director Dozier's baking on LinkedIn. So
yes,
that was something like a daily occurrence. So I was tempted to say
my week of baking,
but maybe in the future, right? Maybe in the future.
All right, we have a hand up, Commissioner Morgan.
So we did initiate before the shutdowns. We did initiate where the commissioners were taking turns bringing something. There's a couple of bakeries not too far from SHRA. I availed myself of one or two of those. So we did that a little bit. It worked, but I'll leave it to the chair and the vice chair to come up with a plan to present to us for our next meeting as to how to handle that.
I'll reach out to the chair and we'll chat and we'll see what we can do. But what I'm hearing are snacks are good.
Not for the figure, but yes, they're good.
Yeah. Well, there's healthy snacks, but I don't think anybody's interested in carrots or celery. No. Okay. All right. Yeah, I want to remain popular, so there won't be really healthy snacks.
All right. Go ahead, continue.
I think Stajabu had her hand.
Did you? I apologize.
I just wanted you to know that I'm a proponent of healthy snacks.
No, okay. Nuts. How about that?
Celery is good.
Oh, celery is good. Okay.
If anybody brings veggies to my Super Bowl party, they're going to be charged with unnecessary roughage.
Roughage. Okay. All right. So I'll move on. And I'm glad that's a good segue into, I just really wanted to formally thank you, Commissioner Morgan. I know we had an opportunity to say that last meeting, but I wanted to really acknowledge your service as chair from 2019 through 2022, and really took us through a lot of changes and turmoil during the pandemic and moving to all these other new platforms, and really just did an outstanding job, and we really appreciate that. So we will have a little plaque to present to you at our next meeting in person. We're looking forward to that, but much thanks and appreciation to you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next is the commission chair report. I don't have anything to report. And I think the next agenda item is items and questions of commissioners. None so far. The only thing I just want to say is happy first day of Black History Month. Just want to recognize that. It's a month where we all can really recognize the accomplishment that many people prior to us have done to really have a huge impact, not just to the United States, but also in the rest of the world. So just wanted to start off by saying happy Black History Month. And are there any other questions, comments?
Just congratulations to you on your first successful meeting.
Yay.
Thank you. I know that the internet tried acting up a little bit, taking me in and out, and I'm like, what's going on of all days? You know, I'm all ready.
Well, you did.
Your vice chair served you well.
Oh, great. I didn't even know. Thank you.
Yeah, she jumped right in. So
I got your back.
Perfect.
You did well. You did well. I think past Chair Morgan would be happy. And like we said, Stephanie, Commissioner Duncan, she jumped in and said, here's my chance, but you came on back in. So in stride with Commissioner Morgan there. So maybe you won't give her any more opportunities, but Commissioner Duncan took it and she did well also. So sorry it was short-lived.
Just remember, Murphy always comes with his law.
Great. So
Jabu, I think she had her hand.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Amber for all the information she got out to us in a timely manner and kept us busy reading and figuring out how to work different things.
Oh, you're on mute.
Appreciate you, Amber. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Right. So if there are no additional questions or comments, I believe we can adjourn.
Okay.
Thank
Look
you
forward
all.
to seeing
Have a
you.
wonderful
Thank
day.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
You kept
Bye.
us less than an hour. Woo.